Michelle Werdeman is a certified life coach, now offering an online coaching membership to support brain power and mental wellness. It's important to exercise our bodies, but we have to exercise our minds too. Our thoughts are what ultimately create the results in our lives. And becoming aware of our thoughts is what we dive into through her Mind, Brain, and Wellness program. You can start to create your dream life today from the comfort of your own home and at your own pace too. Contact Michelle today at mbwliving.com.
Hello and welcome to the Boot Camp for Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Werdeman, certified life, weight, and career coach and certified financial planner. What's up, my friends? How are you doing today? It's chilly here in Massachusetts, but the sun's out, so I'm super happy. And there's some crazy ass wind going on right now, so if you hear howling in the back, it's actually not my dogs this time. It is the wind. It's, super windy. But yeah, I love when the sun's out. The sun is my friend. I definitely miss it in the dead of winter, like on those really cold, dark days. I think I've probably mentioned that on this podcast a few times. And I actually got, a few years ago, one of those sun lamps. I used to use it when I was getting ready, when I had a really long commute. I would use it in the morning just to kind of give me that, like, fake sunlight, not like a tanning bed, but just it's these lamp things that you can get. So I don't know if it worked. I think it did. It could have been a placebo effect. Who knows? But it made me happy. So I just kept going with it. But no, for real, like the sun really is like so important for our health. Like there's so many different benefits. Like I think about it and it's, it helps reduce stress. I think it fights off, depression and it really helps. It actually even helps keep weight off because it has something to do with boosting your immune system and like all of that good stuff. So I love the sun. But I'm not here to talk about the sun today. But actually, I guess, it is about kind of keeping things bright. I wanted to talk about the way that we talk to ourselves, like our internal self-talk. Like, what is it that we say to ourselves? A lot of times you find yourself saying the same things to yourself over and over again, just really having these reoccurring thoughts that you start to believe because our beliefs are really just thoughts that we have thought over and over again. And, I think about some of the things that clients will say to me, and they're all super, super common, and they're thoughts that have been around, forever. A lot of them, I think, some of the common ones I would say I hear a lot is like, I will never lose weight. I'm too old to start over. I have no time. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm not smart enough to do that, or I'm unhappy. I'm fat. Like I hear all sorts of critical thinking and critical thoughts that we think to ourselves and we say to ourselves. And, whether it's looking to make a career change, a relationship that they're in, or just overall life in general, the self-criticism and the judgment that I hear, I myself have it too, but it really started to get me thinking because, things that you say to yourself, would you allow other people to say them to you? I read this book, The Untethered Soul. It's such an amazing read. I highly recommend it. And one of the things it talked about was, we all have that internal voice. But how long would you sit next to your internal voice? I call mine Francis. I think I've mentioned that too before. But if you were sitting next to somebody and they were saying all of the things that you think to yourself about you, how long would you sit next to that person? Would you hang out with that person? My guess is probably not, right? Because who wants to sit with somebody that's just beating you up and judging you and is super critical? So the idea in The Untethered Soul, he talks about that, and it's kind of like living with a roommate, if you will. So that's where I joke that my roommate is Frances. So when Frances starts to say not nice things to me, I just tell her to pipe down. No, but like think about it. Like think about how often and what it is that you say to yourself that might not be serving you, that's actually judging you and is criticizing you, you know? And I heard this on a video that I was watching the other day, and this woman asked a group of people, she was giving a seminar, and she said, how are you at receiving praise or compliments? And a lot of the people were very uncomfortable when they receive compliments. Like, some people are like, oh, hell yeah, like I'll take a compliment, sure. But like a lot of times, sometimes we try to avoid compliments or even like feel awkward. And to kind of give you an example, and this is just something like an everyday comment that somebody might say to you, like, oh, your hair looks really pretty. And your response is, oh, no, it's kind of a mess. Like, I haven't washed it in a couple days. You know, I need to hit the salon. Or, you know, something as innocent as someone saying, like, I love your shirt. Like, it looks beautiful on you. You may say something like, oh, thank you. It's the only thing that would fit, or it's super old and I couldn't find anything else to wear. And I myself have found, like, I'm almost trying to avoid a compliment when I receive them. You know, I'll say thank you, but almost look for like an innocent response that kind of contradicts it or like lessens the meaning of it, which is so interesting, right? Like, how are you at receiving compliments? Think about it. And so it got me thinking, like, you know, if we're unable to really soak in compliments from other people, what does that mean when we're criticizing ourselves and have a hard time accepting accepting compliments or praise from other people? Like, where's all of the positive and uplifting, like, nutrients coming from that we can soak in, right? If we're not accepting them from other people and we're criticizing ourselves, like, where's all the positive goodness that we could be soaking in? And, you know, I'm sure you guys have heard the phrase before, like, we are our own worst critics. But how do you feel if you could be your biggest cheerleader? Like, think about it. You could be your biggest cheerleader and always have your own back. Like, always have something uplifting to say to yourself. You're there through every step of the way, cheering yourself on. And, you know, it's not necessarily easy. It's not like you're walking around, you know, I don't know, high-fiving yourself all day. However, you should high-five yourself at least once a day. There's a book Mel Robbins put out, and it's the High Five. Another good read. Love her. She's amazing. She's actually local from Boston, and she's got a great story. So if you have not heard of her, check her out because, yeah, she's pretty amazing. But it's one of the things that I love about coaching is, and one of the tools that I try to, you know, share with people is really coaching clients to become their own biggest cheerleader. Like, it's so priceless. And our minds learn by repetition. So it does take some practice, which it's actually kind of a fun process. And oftentimes we make a joke about it. That's kind of like their homework and their self-talk. But think about it. Like, how amazing would it be if you could learn to be your biggest cheerleader? And, you know, all those negative thoughts that you've thought over and over again because you believe them, because you've thought them so long, if you started to think other thoughts over and over again, you'd start to believe those. So I want you to really pay attention to the things that you're thinking and saying to yourself about yourself, because you can turn that around should you need to, if they are not kind of cheerleader thoughts, if you will. And it's funny, I had a client, we were both cheerleaders back in the day, and there was this cheer, and it's called it's like AWESOME, you're awesome, awesome, totally. And we just made a joke out of it. And what we did is she actually practiced kind of singing that to herself, sometimes out loud or to herself, but just on repetition, like looking in the mirror and like really kind of cheering yourself on, because you're the only person that can do it whenever you need it. Not that other people aren't cheering you on, but if you're kind of carrying around that internal voice that's your own cheerleader, you can turn that voice on whenever you need to. I want to share with you kind of my personal experience with self-talk and the negative effects that it can have. I remember back when, so I was in my early 20s, which, oh God, that was like 20 years ago. Holy moly. Anyway, so I remember when I first started experiencing panic attacks that kind of came out of nowhere, and I went to see a doctor about them, and I remember her saying to me, when this happens, you can either be your best friend or your own worst enemy. And, I was younger. I didn't have all this coaching background and all these amazing tools that I have now. But I thought about it back then. I'm like, okay, I can be my own worst enemy, or I could be my own best friend when a panic attack kind of starts to strike. And what she meant by that was, if you think about it, where your focus goes, your energy flows. You're going to create more of whatever it is you're focusing on. So with me, it was the minute that I would start to kind of feel like my heart racing, or my stomach getting upset, or just kind of feeling spacey, I would focus there. Like, I would start to say to myself, like, oh God, I'm going to have a panic attack. I don't want a panic attack. I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to feel this way. I just want to feel good. And I was being my own worst enemy because of what I was saying to myself. I was so afraid of the feeling of anxiety that I was just creating more of it. So think about kind of where your focus goes when you start. We all kind of get into these like spiral, like rabbit holes, like spiraling out of control, like thought wise. But I want you to think about that. Like, you have the ability to be your best friend or your own worst enemy. And that's where, like, I go back to that whole, we're our own worst critics. But it really is true. And I think about, my experience when I was commuting, and I'd wake up in the morning, and kind of some of my first thoughts that I would have was like, oh God, like, I don't feel like getting in the car and sitting there for an hour and a half. Well, guess what? Like, I was making that hour and a half kind of miserable because of the way I was thinking about it. And when I turned that thinking around, I used that hour and a half for a lot of learning. I would listen to coaching podcasts. I would listen to YouTube videos. Like, I turned that into like an amazing hour and a half each way because I changed my focus in what I was thinking about in terms of, the commute. So are there areas in your life where you find that you are your own worst critic, or you're being kind of like not your best friend? Are there areas in your life where you'd like to be your best friend? Because you can be, and that's what's really cool. And so I encourage you to kind of just look at, your thoughts throughout the day and what it is that you're saying to yourself. And what's interesting too is I learned that our brains, they hear the words. So they don't, our brain doesn't differentiate between kind of like good, bad, unhealthy. It just hears the words, and it kind of looks to make it happen for you. So when I was struggling with anxiety, and I would think to myself in the morning, like, oh, I don't want to have a panic attack, all my brain heard was like, kind of like panic attack. So I would automatically start to get like anxious, So just be mindful of where it is and what it is that you're saying, because your brain's going to look to make that happen or make something true. I also just want to share with you, it's kind of in the, the same realm as self-talk, but it's about perception. And I say this after coming from, I just had a really nice, it was 5 days down in the Bahamas, just my husband and I, but, we're flying. We're flying, and I can tell you, like, so I posted this on my social media. If you don't follow me, you can go to Michelle Werdeman, and it's Boot Camp for Your Mind on Facebook, and MBW Living on Instagram. But it was this beautiful sky, and we were over the clouds, and like it was breathtaking. And I took a picture of it because I'm looking, and I'm like, you know what? On the other side of these clouds, and I just happened to know the area, we were flying over the Outer Banks, and we have a condo there. So I happened to look on my phone what the weather was like. And I'm like, you know what? On the ground right now, it's a cloudy, cool day. But here I am, the same place, just above the clouds, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And it made me think about life is about perception, right? So you can be in the same place I shouldn't say experiencing the same, but in the same place, like let's say the same event as someone, and having two totally different experiences. And it's because of the way that we think about it. So when we got to the Bahamas, now I had a great time. It was relaxing. Was the weather great? No, it was super windy. We couldn't go into the ocean. But you know what? Back at home, it was single degrees and it was snowing. But I found it really interesting because depending on the person you talked to when we were down at the resort, there were some people, myself included, my husband included, were having a fabulous time. I didn't care that it wasn't 85 and sunny. It was still 70 degrees and I could hang out in the pool and have my cocktails. But there were other people that you talked to that were literally miserable. Like there was this one woman, I'm sitting next to her, and I felt badly for her because she was having a really bad time. Like everything was going wrong. And she just kept finding everything that was bad about her time in the Bahamas. Whether it was her plane, I think, was late. I don't know. I think she had lost something along the way. But like, it was just one thing after another. And she kept complaining about the weather. And I'm like, you know what? Like, this goes back to what I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, like where your focus goes, like your energy kind of flows. And her focus was just on everything that was going wrong, that she created this terrible experience for herself. And, you know, it's funny. I looked at my husband because we were just like, we both felt really kind of sad for her because she was in this beautiful place and she just couldn't enjoy herself. And I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what can I take from here? I'm like, this is going to make it on one of my podcasts. I was like, because it is, you know, life is about perception, and you could create anything you want, and it all just stems from what you think about. Like everything that has come to life, whether it's like this device that you're listening to me on, this microphone that I'm speaking to, the clothes you're wearing, this computer, you know, I'm looking at a bottle of water. Everything in life has always started from a thought, right? Our thoughts are so very important. And if you're not aware of how you think and what you think, you kind of just keep going. I don't know. I guess it's kind of like that hamster wheel. But if you really want to create a different experience for yourself, whether it's with your weight or your career or in your relationship, you can create anything you want. It all just starts with a thought. So please just, be aware of what you're thinking. Know that you can have whatever you want. You can create whatever you want. It is possible. I promise you. And if you'd like, I would be happy to talk with you. I do offer 30-minute discovery calls, which are complimentary, and you can book that directly on my website. It's www.mbwliving.com, and I would love to chat with you and figure out, how can I help you bring your life to the next level, because we are only here once, my friends, so life can be short, so why not live it to the best that you can? So I hope you all have an amazing day. And wow, that's the wind that's going. Hopefully nothing is blowing away out there. But yeah, have an amazing day. Be well. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.